My question revolves around, the neuroscience, what you have talked about this morning, and maybe dive a little bit deeper into what you're seeing as a trend in the learning world, as well as how we're leveraging a lot of neuroscience, a lot of scientific studies now. Finally, in the corporate world, it's
Yep.
not academic anymore.
Right.
That we're leveraging. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the transition happened when positive psychology, when the head of the American Psychological Association said, we study dysfunction.
Right.
Why don't we study what healthy people are doing? So the advent of positive psychology and the advent of medical technology like MRIs allowed there to be a shift. Those things happen simultaneously,
Right.
where we started to look at what are healthy people doing and what's going on inside of these bodies that we walk around in every day. They can now see inside of us in a way they haven't before. So there's a renaissance happening medically
Love it.
that's driving some new information. And that new information, I think, is shifting everything about how we understand humans and certainly our fields of learning and development.
So, what would you be seeing as an important consideration when we're designing training um, to ensure that we incorporate all of these pieces, but also, I guess what you're trying to do is humanizing it. Maybe you can explain that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think the benefit of neuroscience is we are wired in certain ways. We are wired to survive.
Right.
We're wired to be connected to other humans and feel a sense of belonging. And ultimately we're wired to become our best self. We all hunger for achieving our potential. We hunger to make meaning in some way. So, and that goes back to Maslow. I mean, Maslow had it right? But
I
now,
love him.
but now we understand the neurostructures that happen. And I think for us as learning designers, two things. One is neuroscientists all do their own thing. They're brilliant and fantastic, but they don't talk to each other.
Right.
So I know for myself, when I started to explore this, I had to cultivate and have the ability to synthesize data across all these different
Discipline.
theorists.
Yeah.
But what was great about it was lining up with the things that happen when we're in the room with each other, right? When we have a moment where everyone got it, what happened there?
Right.
So I think for all of us, we need to kind of keep our finger on the pulse. We need to have a couple good sources that we go to for people who synthesize or connect the dots. But more importantly, we need to really be committed to letting go of some of our old notions of learning, because they never worked, and actually just be willing to reinvent how we approach learning.
So, what would be good tips for everyone on the kind of authors or websites that you check?
Yeah. Well, so some of my main sources are Richard Davidson's work out of University of Wisconsin. He's the one doing all the mindfulness research and what happens when and mindfulness programs, we need to be rolling them out in all of our organizations. The Neuro Leadership Institute also, I think, is doing a really good job synthesizing some learning materials. And I have to say I'm doing a pretty good job of it too. So buy my book, it's on Amazon.
There you go.
But I would say that there's a few people who are translating that neuroscience work into our work environments and kind of staying connected to them.
So I just wanted to kind of shift a little bit to the mindfulness piece that you talked about.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating, but also potentially be challenging for people who would think, as you say, a little bit of woo-woo is okay, but then maybe if we go way too woo-woo, people will be like, really, what's going on?
Right.
So how do
So,
you address that?
well, two things. The neuroscience shows that mindfulness helps us achieve things that we couldn't achieve before.
Right.
I think the problem is back in the 60s when everyone was doing the mantras with the incense and their paisley outfits, mindfulness got kind of a bad rap, and we're recovering from that.
Right.
And so people wanted to stay away from that. And so now neuroscience is coming at it from a different angle. Richard Davidson is literally putting people on MRI machines and looking at how does the brain change when we engage in meditation, for example.
Right.
What I have found is that I think we all know that emotional intelligence has some really great benefits in the workplace. It predicts success. 80 to 90% of the emotional intelligence factors predict success. Mindfulness is how you unlock emotional intelligence, right? It's that ability to be aware of your feelings and self-reflective and control yourself so that if you somehow really tick me off, I have the presence of mind to not do something stupid, right, in a staff meeting or send an email. And then it's the ability tune into other people's feelings and cultivate great
Right.
rapport, right? And we all know managers or leaders who do that get more out of their people in their organizations. So the way I talk about it in organizations is mindfulness is just unlocking emotional intelligence. It doesn't have to be woo-woo. If you want to go there, fantastic. You don't have to.
There you
But
go.
it's also kind of explaining that mindfulness is
like
just
that.
really being present. It's just about being present in this
Yeah.
moment.
My
That's-
mom used to
that's
say
really it
count
is.
to 3,
Yeah.
right? Before you even before you scream at people.
Yeah. Well, in all the wisdom traditions, no matter what your beliefs are,
Right.
all of the wisdom traditions actually teach some kind of mindfulness
Right.
or emotional intelligence at the core.
Right.
So it's really just that it works.
know.
But now we have the neuroscience of why it's working.
Then we can put it in the workplace, and it actually should work
Yeah.
at that point.
Well, and then the other thing too is that the additional benefit organizations will get is mindfulness practices affect people's health.
Right.
So you're going to see insurance costs go down, and you're going to see the health of your
actual
workers
bottom
go
line
up.
for you,
So
yeah.
how we manage stress, it also
right,
helps how
that's great.
people develop disease, and it will counteract some health costs
Right.
too. So there's an ROI
Love it.
on that angle in addition to like the leadership and
And
engagement
again,
piece.
retention and all of those pieces as well.
Yeah,
Because
it's
now they
kind of a
love working
no-brainer.
there. I love it. Well, thank you so much for the time that you've given us.
Thank you.